Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. Hope you guys all enjoyed your Turkey Day yesterday. We took a day off from uploading here on the channel, and I'm feeling pretty good and refreshed. Had a nice holiday myself. Hope you guys all did as well. But we are here today with a Z Vegito deck profile. As many of you already know, this deck is coming out of the anniversary box looking very, very strong. A lot of people are pegging this as like their second or third best red deck, which doesn't sound like all that great, but I mean, when you're comparing to Gogeta and Sin, to be the third best red deck is quite something to say. But this is also a rainbow deck, so it's not really a red deck, at least in my opinion. This is much more than a red deck. You can play a lot of cool tech cards because of all the colors you have access to, and we'll look at that in today's video. Now, I normally do save the more like highly competitive profiles, and I do think this is a very highly competitive deck. I do usually save those for the Patreon, just to show the supporters some love and all that stuff. But in the spirit of the holiday, I figured I would share this with you guys here on the channel, completely public. So we'll go over that in today's video. If you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe. Really does help out a lot. Hit that like button. Also goes a long way. Let's jump right on into things. We have the leader, which is pretty much only on one side, and what I mean by that is you're gonna awaken most turn twos of the game, of each game, so you don't really even worry about your unawakened side. Anyways, going into the main board, we of course have 4 copies of Vegeta protecting his loved ones. Just one of the best Vegetas you can play. 1-drop barrier, and when you ever play against a blue matchup, you actually want this guy to stick around on the board. A lot of times you're playing your 1-drop cantrips just to combo them to Z energy, just so you don't have to take like a raw minus from hand. Luckily, this deck only needs like 1 Z energy max in the early game, and sometimes 2 later on for some stuff. But yeah, this is one that you want to stick around on the board if you are going to be up against a blue matchup, because you just naturally punish their D magics, which is awesome. Then we have Vegeta Fatherly Encouragement. So like I said, rainbow deck, we are playing quite a bit of yellow, maybe more yellow than you've seen in other builds. But ideally, like if I can help it, this actually happens a fair amount, like my entire charge will just be yellow, because the leader gives the Gokus and Vegetas red, blue, and green. So if you charge a yellow one, your Vegetas have, or Gokus and Vegetas have all colors besides black, which is great. So yeah, if I can charge all yellow, I'll go for that. Typically you'll charge like 2 to 3 yellows, maybe a red, maybe a green. But you got to make sure you're charging pretty much all Gokus and Vegetas, except for like maybe one non-Goku Vegeta red card, if you can help it. 3 copies of Goku Legend Personified, great 1-drop, actually a good late game threat. And with his bond, he gains 21k power, and then later on, if you use him to fuse with a Vegeta, that fusion will actually carry over the 21k power as well, which is a really awesome thing. Like, you get some really big attackers for 1 to 2 energy. Vegito Polymorphic Potara and Vegeta Resolve combined, just some of the main playmakers in the deck. These are highly searchable in the deck thanks to the new Z battle card, so that's incredible. Like, the consistency of this deck is through the roof. It's really, really strong, and this combo is incredible. A lot of times, I do just find myself sitting on a 25k barrier Vegito Resolve combined. Obviously, he has the Activate Battle to go into another Vegito, which we will talk about in just a minute. But yeah, sometimes just sitting on the barrier is really good. And speaking of barrier, we're also playing 3 copies of Vegito Paralyzing Prowess. This is the only 8-drop I play, besides the Secret Rare, which we'll see later, that you can actually cast off of the Z Leader's effect. I don't like the dual attack double strike crit one. I mean, that card is like good for pressure, but this thing having deflect and barrier is such great protection. The triple strike offers a lot of pressure. The other Vegito that I mentioned is also a 10k combo, which can clunk a little bit. So I'm just playing 3 copies of this guy plus the SCR. Those are my 8 cost Vegitos that we're playing on top of our Z battle card. And then we have 2 copies of Hyper Rush. So Hyper Rush is meant to be played off of Vegito Resolve Combined's ability, and it comes up a fair amount. It's actually really solid defensively, because this deck can play Senzu Bean, so you can untap energy defensively. And again, if you charge yellow or green or red, it counts as blue, so you can untap all that energy, which is awesome. And yeah, the ability to pop something during battle and then draw 2 cards, potentially take life if you need to, rip a card out of your opponent's hand. This is a very strong effect. 2 copies is perfect because we have so many abilities that can put it back into our deck to then be played off Resolve Combined. So yeah, 2 is just a perfect number for me. 4 copies are added Saiyan Youth. This is why it's important that all your energy be red, and what I mean by that is you have to charge Gokus and Vegetas, which will count as red by default. Or if you somehow like can't afford to charge a Goku or Vegeta, you got to charge like a copy of Vegeta Resolve Combine or Polymorphic Potara or any of the other red cards we have in the deck. But make sure you don't charge a card like Rush SSB Vegito or Paralyzing Prowess. You cannot afford to do that with this super combo. Yes, of course you can play Beerus super combo, but I mean the ability to cycle through your deck and again put cards like Hyper Rush back to the bottom, I think is way too value. I've never regretted running the super combo. 1 copy of Omega Shenron. We can play this card because we do run a red Z leader, and this is such a cool thing because more and more decks that come out in the future are going to be able to play this card outside of just like the Sin archetype, right? I'm only playing 1 because I wanted to keep the deck to 52 cards, and of course I would side another copy. This card is very, very good against red decks because in the early games specifically, they usually can't minus enough to get this thing off the board, because the first time they go for a minus ability, this is actually going to nullify that and gain 5k. So they have to do like 2 to 3 more minusing effects just to get this thing off the board. So it is almost as good as a barrier battle card in the red matchups, and it offers you removal, so great defensively as well. Then we have 3 copies of Whis, Angel of Universe 7. If we manage to charge all 4 colors, which is super easy by turn 1, turn 2 in this deck, this is essentially a better blocker negate. So the reason why it's essentially better is that it does have combo power in hand, even though it costs 2 energy, but as long as you have 2 energy open, it gets you 1 energy back. So it's really kind of like a 1 energy 10k combo if timed correctly. And it's got 10k power as opposed to 5k power. That's relevant for other things too. This can be used at higher life if you really need to. Like some decks have their entire turn stopped by negating a crucial attack. This can serve that purpose. Like this card is just incredible. 3 copies of SSB Vegeta Future on the line. Funnily enough, I have like so many games with this deck, and I have maybe casted this like once. You can technically evolve it over Vegeta Fatherly Encouragement, and it is another form of barrier removal. This deck does not struggle in any way though with barrier removal once we see the Z leader, but still it's a yellow Vegeta. It's a good energy, and you can cast it, and it does get you some value by drawing a card. So yeah, good card to include at 3 of in my opinion. 2 copies of Almighty Resistance. One of the main reasons to include yellow in your deck. We know how powerful this card is in Red Sin. It's just as strong here. 1 copy of our secret rare. I've tried a lot of secret rares in this deck. I have tried Yellow Bardock, which I did quite like. I've tried Springtide of Time. I've tried Pan. I've come back to this SCR. The reason I kind of steered away from this SCR is that if you see it later in the game, it can be dead because it can reduce its own cost in hand. And if it does that, your Z leader can actually not play it. So I was kind of looking to go away from this SCR out of fear of that, but honestly in the past like 30, 40, 50 games I've played, that has not come up. Like I've always been able to cast this when I wanted to, and besides that, again, this card's highly searchable, so you're oftentimes dropping this in like turn 3, turn 4 before your opponent can actually meet the requirements to reduce this guy's cost. So that hasn't really been an issue. I don't really foresee that being a huge problem, but again, other options like Yellow Bardock in particular is a good option for this deck. 4 copies of Goku facing Goku Black. This is like the only Goku Vegeta in the deck you don't actually want to cast. Like you can in a pinch, it can find copies of itself and it can find copies of Vegeta Fatherly Encouragement, but really this is just more yellow. You want to charge it, you want to pitch it to Almighty Resistance. You don't really want to be casting it too much. 3 copies of Flying Nimbus. Again, we're not really a red deck because of cards like Flying Nimbus. It's really cool we can play cards like this. Good against your Sin matchup, good against your SS4 Gogeta matchup. Solid card. Obviously this deck lost Violent Rays. I would still probably sideboard it because it's probably good in the mirror match, but yeah, it's not really as applicably main deckable because of the errata, making it lose quite a bit of reach. But Nimbus is a great replacement, and with all the yellow in the deck, it's a no-brainer to play this card in my opinion. 3 copies of Bean. I think 3 is the perfect number. You can't really use it offensively, so I don't want to clog on it too much, but it can combo very nicely with Vegito Resolve Renewed to play Hyper Rush straight from the deck. 1 copy of Dark Broly Heartless Berserker. Sometimes I want a second Overwhelm, but that might be a little bit greedy. If your opening hand is a bit too weird without like Gokus and Vegetas, you don't want to have like 2 copies of an off-color card like this. But yeah, it is incredibly good. And then 3 copies of Resolve Renewed. Now that it is newly errata to only be played in Vegito leaders, of course we are playing 3 copies here, and it's still just a great answer to Floodgates on top of other things. Going down to the Z deck, very simple. 1 copy of the Z leader. This is one half of the reason why this deck is so good. Basically barrier removal on command, playing 8 cost Vegetos. It's super strong. And then we have 4 copies of the Vegito Z battle card. There are plenty of games where I go through all 4 of these, so I do think 4 is pretty important, and this is again what adds so much searchability to our deck, being able to fish for any Vegito. Yes, you got a bottom deck a card, but that's still fine. And then we have the activate main to awaken ourselves. Now, if I'm up against an aggro deck, if I can help it, I'll actually let them put me down to 4 life so that I don't have to waste an energy and a Z energy on this to awaken myself. If I'm up against like Blue Gohan or Red Sin or whatever the case is, I would much prefer them to awaken me so I can use that 1 energy and 1 Z energy to just go straight into my Z leader. That would be much preferred. Just something I wanted to note there for, you know, playing the deck. And then we have 2 copies of Oolong, Greed is Good. This deck does not generate Z energy too much. I mean, like, once you get into the late game and you're comboing offensively and defensively, yeah, you'll probably stack up a decent amount of it, but there's really no other Z battle card that's cheap, but also, like, really powerful in impact. And Oolong is a great card for that. I mean, just copying your Paralyzing Prowess or your SCR and getting 40k is just way too good to pass up on. We have plenty of yellow energy. I was trying out things like Airy Beerus, but you're never going to really want to pay 4 for that. It's too expensive in this deck. You could play things like Defender of Life, SS4 Goku, but 3Z energy is a big ask sometimes. So I've just found Oolong to be the best. But yeah, this is the build I'm running. No Unison, like obviously you're seeing here. I've seen some builds running Unison. I think it slows the deck down a little bit too much. Plus, like, with all these extra cards and negates and stuff, I don't think I really want to be playing a Unison. I don't know where I'd fit the space. I love the number of Gokus and Vegetas in here. I think this list is pretty solid. This is what I've been playing with, guys. But anyways, of course, I want in the comments below what you think about this list. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.